Do you have good character? If you do, where did you learn it? Chances are your parents influenced you the most. They taught you to be respectful, not to lie, cheat, or steal. And those values were reinforced in school. But today, educators are saying that too many kids are coming to school lacking good character. Students are unruly, sometimes out of control, and teachers are nervous. In Character 101, Reading, Writing, and Respect, we'll focus on the issue of bringing character education into our public schools, who's for it, who's against it, and what some schools are doing about it.
Down by the old...
Public schools yesterday and public schools today.
I think what's happened is that in the name of tolerance, we've said anything goes.
Activities such as touching students on or near the breasts.
The shooting of a teacher at Largo High School.
Our future could never get that bizarre. Well, we're there.
What we've got now is a little nation of rebels running around because we've taught them they can do anything they want.
What did schools have then that they don't have now? Leaders from educational, political, and religious fronts say values, virtue, good character. Whatever you want to call it, it's the decline of America's social system, and how to go about repairing it is one of the hottest topics in education.
We have a lot of kids that come to school today. They've never been taught right from wrong. I'm amazed at this.
Ohio Democrat Tony Hall is leading the congressional battle to get character education into public schools.
We spend a lot of money on trying to keep guns out of high school and drugs out of high school. We ought to be, we ought to take the same pot of money and maybe use a little of it and say, values are important.
On Capitol Hill, efforts to make grant money available for character education have been stuck in a political quagmire for years.
The school, I think, should do nothing to counteract the sound value structure that children get from families.
Character education opponents, like Texas Republican Richard Armey, say values lessons belong at home, not in school.
And that time, I think, is a precious resource that should be focused properly on the essential task of the school, which is, of course, to provide instruction in algebra, mathematics, geography, the proper use of the English language, or whatever.
Janet Parshall, a former teacher and spokeswoman for the conservative group Concerned Women for America, believes character education comes from good role models, not more money.
You see, it doesn't cost a penny to tell a child how to be honest. It doesn't cost a penny to tell a child how to be fair. If I, as a teacher, am practicing that in the classroom, if I create that atmosphere in my classroom, I don't need a nickel of federal dollar.
Tony Hall points out that character education must be supported in the classroom because too often it's not supported at home.
Obviously, teaching values belongs in the family, and it belongs in our churches and our temples and places like that. But let's say people don't go to those places, and let's say, number two, the families are split up, and where's the next best place? Is in schools.
I can just hear what someone with an opposing viewpoint would say. They would say, oh, but we live in a different culture, and we live in a different time, and our society has changed, and family structures have changed. Time out. I question that again. Having to know how to read, having to know how to write, having to know how to put together a sentence that makes sense from beginning to end, where the words are all spelled correctly, and not just because they made Johnny feel good so he guesstimated at how he should spell the word. Those are still basic skills.
On another front, conservative Christian groups, like those headed by Robert Simons, say character education in public schools is okay as long as the Bible has a role in the curriculum.
The Bible is the greatest moral and ethical teacher in the world. Now, I'm just saying in that statement that our system, our nation, is a Christian nation. And so we need to follow the concepts and precepts of the Bible in governing our nation and our children.
A consensus on the issue isn't likely to happen soon. But many schools aren't waiting for one. Already, thousands of them have taken character education into their own hands.
Values, very good. Let's say this word, character.
Character.
Values.
Values.
Do you
Schools in Baltimore, Maryland teach character and citizenship classes and were some of the first in the country to do so. Elementary school teacher Sharon Grant says character education can be difficult to squeeze into the day, but she sees the need for it.
When they're not getting it at home,
then where else will they get it? So it's up to us to try to build or fit their needs or meet the needs of the children as much as possible.
To meet the needs of the children. Congressman Hall says that's his goal, too.
We're not trying to teach and cram things down people's throats. We're not trying to mandate it. We're just saying this is important. Let's start.
In 1994, the Clinton administration took a significant step toward bringing character education into public schools. A new law makes grant money available to schools interested in starting character education programs. The character issue is not just a concern of inner-city schools fighting drugs and violence. Even quiet suburban schools are subject to the influences of a more complicated world. At McLean High School in suburban Virginia, values, virtue, and good character are an integral part of the education. The school's 40-year-old crest reads, "Virtue, mine honor." But 2 years ago, a hate crime shook this proud school to its rafters.
The particular vandalism that we had was anti-Semitic in nature, even though it attacked other groups as well.
This rock, usually decorated with harmless class pride slogans, was spray painted with swastikas and racial obscenities that extended onto the wall and into the street. The next school day, using the public address system, the principal expressed her outrage.
And that was really the impetus to the notion that we could take time off periodically during the school day to do what we called school-wide ethics lessons.
Several times a year, the entire school focuses on issues like prejudice and multicultural sensitivity, important issues at McLean, because students from 50 different nations walk its halls.
What are some of the things that you can do as far as consequences for someone coming before you the first time?
Students here share adult responsibilities. When rules are broken, the accused must face both administrators and peers. These class leaders are potential honor court members who will determine the violator's punishment, usually community service or Saturday detention. This jury of peers idea has kept trouble to a minimum.
Because you really care what your peers think, a lot of times more so than you do what adults think of you.
And what you're initialing is that you have been told what the honor code is and that you are aware of the consequences of not following the honor code.
At the beginning of each year, McLean students are asked to abide by a list of values. They're based on the 6 pillars of character from the Josephson Institute of Ethics, an organization which promotes character education. They are trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, justice and fairness, caring, civic virtue and citizenship. Widely held values, yes, but critics of the pillars of character say not all families would agree on the definition of the terms.
How do you define justice? Well, let's take a lightning rod issue. Let's talk about gay rights in America. Some families might say that justice means that we have the recognition of domestic partnerships, that one family type is exactly the same as another family type. That single issue might be enough to be able to have another family say, well, in our house, that's not considered justice. In our house, we consider that morally reprehensible. In fact, we consider it just plain wrong.
Character education, defining it and how to go about teaching it, is controversial. But does that mean schools should ignore it? A growing number of administrators are saying no.
An education devoid of value is not a worthy education.
Principal Elizabeth Lodell is so convinced of the need for values education that she teaches an ethics class every day. Using the Holocaust as a basis of study, her students explore issues of racism and prejudice.
I chose a course that, for me, sent an important message about who I am and what I expect from the faculty and the young people. One of the things that we do in this class is really think about history, because history differs depending on who writes it.
Elizabeth Lodell isn't sure all of her students will grow up to become virtuous adults, but she's determined to give all of them that opportunity. Over the last 30 years, teachers say they've noticed a change in their students. There's more violence and cheating, less responsibility and respect. Some say the freedom of the 60s has led to the anarchy of the 90s. What can teachers do to bring proper behavior back into their classrooms? One group says the answer is not to preach it, but to live it.